right, we started?
Okay,
so last week we stopped on page 42, right at the bottom of page 42, going back into the Gosho itself again.
Yes.
And this is again reading from the writings of Hope-Filled Teachings of Nichiren Daishonin by Daisaku Ikeda. And we are studying the Gosho reply to Sairen-bo. We are page 42. By the way, as you can see, if you actually have this text, there are pages with boxes that have supplemental information. We always treat them as supplemental information. We really don't read them into the lecture. So if you have this book, you can read those things about the devil of the sixth heaven or voice hearers. You can look those up also in the Buddhist dictionary. And I'm going to start tonight by talking more about things before we get into the Gosho itself. Okay? So I want to make sure that we're doing supplemental kind of understanding so that the Gosho becomes more meaningful and understandable. And really, what is from what you've read so far and what you've heard me talk about so far in this Gosho, what is the point of this Gosho? What does the reply to Sairen-bo address as an issue?
Mentor and disciple.
Exactly. Correct teacher and correct teaching is really it, as much as mentor and disciple is absolutely correct, Catherine. But again, how to determine or discern good teachers versus bad teachers, because it's very easy to be swept away by someone very pious or very, that's why I use the language I use. I try to keep this very, very common, very, very, very real. And it's real easy to be swept away by people that seem like they know a lot. And actually, they could know a lot, and that doesn't mean that they're correct. Okay? So, what I wanted to start out by, there's like several entries in this, in the dictionary that I'm going to go over. I'm going to go over the three great secret laws again, and the threefold secret teaching, and the one chapter in the two halves, and the concept and the real meaning, the Nichiren meaning of the essential teaching. Because generally speaking, if I was talking about the essential teaching, what would you what would you consider that I was discussing with you? George? If I say essential teaching, generally what do we think of when we say essential teaching? We think of the second 14 chapters, right? Out of the 28 chapter Lotus Sutra. The first 14 are the theoretical teaching. Now, but the essential teaching as far as Nichiren is concerned is what?
Origin.
Is Nam-myoho Renge-kyo and the Buddhism of the sowing, okay? Which is hidden in the depths of the lifespan chapter of the essential teaching. So when you got to be able to discern when is he talking about the essential teaching in the Lotus Sutra and when is he really talking about the essential teaching, his teaching of the Buddhism of the sowing. Okay? Which again, as he's writing all of this, is in a process of construct. Right? In other words, it isn't past Nichiren's lifetime yet. There are still more Goshos that will be written. There's still more clarification that will occur. Alright? So when we talk about correct teachers and incorrect teachers, good teachers and bad teachers, what's the one thing that Nichiren's already qualified in his teaching? Changing and understandings and perceptions are predicated on karma and the era in which you live. And what is your true identity? Okay, the original disciples of the Buddha in his true identity, the eternal Buddha, we call the Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, thus come one. Those are the bodhisattvas of the earth, right? They come here to propagate the law as an extension of the original teacher. Do you understand? Okay, so I'm going to get into this definition of the essential teaching. And I could read the whole... Okay, so when I go to the dictionary on page... the Buddhist dictionary on page 167, and of course if you access this on the internet, it doesn't have page numbers. Okay, but if you went to the under E, you went to essential teaching, you would look it up, you would find that it has a number 1, that there are two, it kind of like basically says there's two different respective identities. So let me just read this to you. Okay. Essential teaching, also original teaching. Okay? So understand, when we're talking about essential teaching, we're talking about the original teaching. When we talk about the essential teaching in the latter day of the law, we're talking about the original teaching. What is the original teaching? The Buddhism of the Harvest? No, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo is the original teaching, okay? So he says, the original teaching. Now, from the view of people that practice or are not aware of the Buddhism of the sowing, what would they think, though? They would think essential teaching. They'd think last 14 chapters if they were honoring Shakyamuni's Lotus Sutra. Okay? He says, but then there's the other view, again, of the Buddhism of the sowing. And that's what I'm trying to get you to understand, is that quite often, Daisaku Ikeda is attacked. And first of all, since this is being videoed, I also want to make sure and everybody understands that I do not represent the Soka Gakkai International. I haven't been to an SGI meeting in years. I would practice within my local organization. I don't, because I have a big disagreement with how they perceive things. And I've devoted myself to try and help create clarity for people based on the teachers that I've had and the teaching that I understand. And I certainly didn't start out as a disciple of Daisaku Ikeda. I became one after I compared what I already knew to what I heard him now saying, which was the first time I'd ever heard him actually speak, because I'd always listen to other people tell me what President Ikeda always says. Okay? It takes work to study and to dig and to find out the truth. Okay? And I'm trying to expedite that process for all of you, but you will all still have to study and work and dig. There's no way to avoid that if you're going to actually attain actual Ichinen Sanzen. And what is actual Ichinen Sanzen? Buddhahood.
Yeah.
Okay, Buddhahood in your present form.
Right.
All right, so again, the point that I'm making is that quite often, the thing that people try to qualify as the difference between a correct and an incorrect teacher is whether or not what they're saying is exactly the same as what's preceded them. Okay? But I've made this point before. I make it again for the benefit of the conversation. All of the major individuals in the history of Buddhism all made small changes, or actually not changes, clarifications. Okay? And somebody that looks at something that's static and never changing cannot see that need or that benefit of that clarification. I mean, ultimately, when you talk about Nichiren, why was Nichiren taking so much shit in 13th century Japan as he was trying to teach his interpretation of the Lotus Sutra? Because he was saying stuff that no one had ever said before. He was changing the game. Just like Nagarjuna changed the game. Just like Vasubandhu changed the game. Just like Tintai and Nanye and Myolo and Dingyo, they all changed the game in some way. They left something behind after their advent that had not existed prior to their advent. Nichiren's the same way. You can't attack Daisaku Ikeda for now teaching us the concept of the philosophy, of the Soka philosophy. And so, for the benefit of the people that are watching, I'm not SGI. My friend Mark tried visiting us again and tried to peg this conversation as an SGI study session, or that I'm some SGI guy. I am a disciple of Daisaku Ikeda. I do not participate in SGI activities at this moment. I support the concepts that Daisaku Ikeda has professed as being the predication and the basis of the way the Soka Gakkai should be being behaved. And that's usually the complaint or the criticism, is that. But we don't get it by splitting off and saying that Daisaku Ikeda is the responsible wrong person. He's actually the correct teacher, in my opinion. And I'll express that as we go through the balance of this Go-Show. So let's first start out by talking about the essential teaching. So first of all, when I go to the dictionary, this whole number 1 definition, I'm going to skip, because that has to do with the definition of the essential teaching as it relates to the Buddhism of the Harvest. And I really don't care so much about the Buddhism of the Harvest. Do you understand? Mm-hmm. Okay. So I always look for, what did Nichiren say? What's Nichiren's opinion? That's what I care about. I really don't care about anybody else's opinion, but that's just me. All right? So what is the second definition on page 168? In his writings, Nichiren sometimes uses the term essential teaching to indicate the essential teaching of the latter day of the law. That is the teaching of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. The object of devotion for observing the mind reads the essential teaching of Shakyamuni's lifetime, and that revealed by Nichiren at the beginning of the latter day of the law, are both pure and perfect in that both lead directly to Buddhahood. But he's qualifying that they are two different teachings right there. Right? Okay. So he continues by saying, Shakyamuni's, however, is the Buddhism of the harvest. This is Nichiren Daishonin qualifying this. And this is the Buddhism of the sowing. Okay? The core of his teaching is the 1 chapter and 2 halves, and the core of mine is the 5 characters of the Daimoku alone, the essential teaching itself, the law itself that is never qualified in any of the Buddhism of the harvest. Okay? Nichiren thus identified Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, the teaching he revealed at the beginning of the latter day, as the essential teaching for that age. For that age, for the latter day of the law, the essential teaching is the Buddhism of the sowing, the Nam-myoho Renge-kyo teaching. Pardon me. Okay. From this viewpoint, in the same treatise, Nichiren states the difference between the theoretical and the essential teachings is as great as that between heaven and earth. Is he talking about the theoretical and the essential teachings of the Lotus Sutra? No, he's talking about the theoretical teaching that is the Buddhism of the harvest. And actual Ichinen Sanzen that's available for the Buddhism of sowing. Is actual Ichinen Sanzen available or accessible through the Buddhism of the harvest? No. Is it accessible through Nichirenism in general? Just chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo? No. Because people that chant Nam-myoho Renge-kyo can be chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo and not be practicing the Buddhism of the sowing. Do you understand that? I'm going to get into that definition again. Nichikan, another guy that's a game changer, that qualified and made clarification, is the one that leads us onto that path. And the proof of actual fact proves that that is the correct path to continue. All right? There's been no one that's been able to challenge this interpretation, that's been able to create a discernible deterrent to it. Do you understand? In other words, Nichikan's clarification continued through Nichiren Shoshu until Nichiren Shoshu morphed into the correct teaching and teacher of the Soka Gakkai, Tanesaburo Makaguchi, Josei Toda, Daisaku Ikeda, and now all of us who have been turned loose with an educated understanding of perception of truth that wasn't even accessible to us as lay people until the Soka Gakkai. Okay? So don't underestimate that. He's saying the difference between the theoretical and essential teachings is as great as that between heaven and earth. Nevertheless, even the difference between the doctrine of 3,000 realms in a single moment of life of the theoretical teaching and that of the essential teaching pales into significance. The difference that pales into significance when it is compared with the difference between the essential teaching that is the latter half of the Lotus Sutra and the essential teaching revealed by Nichiren at the beginning of the latter day of the law, or the essential teaching of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Hence, he termed his essential teaching the unique essential teaching. Okay? And that's from on the mystic principle of true cause. As we know, that's what creates the mainstream of Nikko Nikko interpretation of the Daishonin's teachings. So he goes like, he mentions here, the core of his teaching is the 1 chapter and the 2 halves. The core of mine is the Daimoku alone, right? All right, so let's go. Does everybody know what the 1 chapter and the 2 halves is? What does that refer to?
The 16th chapter.
Yeah, that's the 1 chapter.
15th, second half, and at the beginning of the 16th, 17th.
17th, exactly. Okay, and who initiated this teaching of the 1 chapter and the 2 halves? Is that initiated by Nichiren? No.
Nichikan.
No. Tiantai. So let's go into the 1 chapter and the 2 halves to completely understand the difference between the way Tiantai taught that concept and the way it was reinterpreted, once again, changed by Nichiren in his teaching of the Buddhism of the sowing. Because Tiantai did not know the Buddhism of the sowing. Do you understand that? All right, so the one chapter in the two halves, this is again, now this would be on page 472 of the Buddhist dictionary. Look it up under the O if you're looking on the internet. He says the one chapter in the two halves, the core of the Lotus Sutra, comprising the latter half of the emerging from the earth 15th chapter, the entire lifespan 16th chapter, and the first half of the distinction and benefits 17th chapter. This section reveals Shakyamuni Buddha's original attainment of enlightenment at Goyaku Jintengo, right? Pardon me. At the beginning of the emerging from the earth chapter, the bodhisattvas of the earth make their appearance. Everybody's with me? We've all read the Lotus Sutra. You all know where I'm at, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. They make their appearance, and Bodhisattva Maitreya, on behalf of the assembly that's already been there before they made their appearance, asks Shakyamuni who they are. Remember, he says, hey, I've been hanging with you forever, and I've never seen any of these dudes before. Okay. The Buddha replies that they are his disciples whom he has been teaching since the time of his enlightenment in this Sahe world, though he alludes that since to having taught them since the long distant past. Unsatisfied, Bodhisattva Maitreya persists. Do you remember? Mm-hmm. He's saying, but how could that be? How could you have done this all in 40 years? I haven't met any of these people before. Mm-hmm. All right? And so then Maitreya persists. How could Shakyamuni have possibly trained so many countless bodhisattvas in the mere 40 years since his awakening under the Bodhi tree? He implores Shakyamuni to explain further for the sake of future generations who may harbor doubts. Okay? To comply, the Buddha explains in the next chapter, Lifespan, that he actually attained enlightenment in the unimaginably distant past, what is known as numberless major world system dust particle kalpas in the past, Goyaku Jintengo. And since then, he has always been in this world teaching the people. The first part of the Distinctions and Benefit chapter explains that the Bodhisattvas and others who heard this revelation have all thereby received great benefits that will ensure their enlightenment. Okay, so what does that basically tell you right there from the perspective of Nichiren's teaching? Can you achieve actual Ichinen Sanzen based on the Buddhism of the harvest? No. All right. So Tentai and Nichiren. Because when can you attain Buddhahood based on the teachings of the Buddhism of the harvest? In the former and the middle day.
Yeah.
Only not in the latter day.
Yeah.
It runs out after 2,000 years. Mm-hmm. It's efficacy and it's yes, power. Yeah. That's why the fifth half millennium is the fifth 500-year period. So Nietzsche,
so they are preaching for something that loses its power after a while.
Yeah, because the bodhisattvas that appear in that theoretical teaching of the Lotus Sutra or the Buddhism of the harvest, okay, inclusive of both the essential teaching of the latter half, all right, are all original disciples of Shakyamuni Buddha from the time, according to Shakyamuni in the Lotus Sutra, from the time when he first attained Buddhahood as the 16th son of great universal wisdom excellence. Okay? So, again, Shakyamuni's Buddhism laid a foundation for the advent. Okay, so how long is the Buddhism of the harvest by Shakyamuni's own account going to be lasting? 2,000 years, right? The former and the middle day. But how long is Mappo? How long is the latter day of the law? Forever. 10,000 years and beyond.
So it's very important.
Oh, it's the most important. This is why I'm trying to qualify. It's the essential teaching.
It's a key word of
right, and the disciples that have the capacity to perceive this and the fortune, the original disciples, the bodhisattvas of the earth, make their advent only in the latter day of the law to propagate the real essential teaching or the unique essential teaching, which is what I just tried to read to you to understand, to make that discerning difference. So let me continue. And I know it's going to seem like I read a lot from the dictionary before I get into this, but it'll all be worthwhile if you listen to me. Tentai and Nichiren interpreted the concept of the one chapter in two halves differently. According to Tentai's interpretation, the latter half of the emerging from the earth chapter begins with Shakyamuni's statement that the bodhisattvas of the earth are his disciples, whom he has been teaching since the long distance past. Hearing this brief statement, Tentai says Shakyamuni's disciples have understood that this enlightenment occurred in the remote past. In the Lotus Sutra, however, this implication, which is not stated specifically, it's implied, is followed by Bodhisattva Maitreya's second question. How could the Buddha have taught so many bodhisattvas in the short space of a few decades based on the sutra's text? Nichiren interprets this question as being asked for the sake of those who will come after Shakyamuni's death. Us. Okay? Thus, Nichiren does not include Shakyamuni's initial brief allusion to his answer to this question, his statement that he has been teaching the bodhisattvas of the earth since the long distance past in the latter half of the emerging from the earth chapter, or the one chapter in the two halves. Do you understand? Nichiren doesn't start it from that. He doesn't say they're Shakyamuni's disciples. That's why as his teachings mature, he clarifies more and more that the original teacher is him. I'll read you all that so you understand why that is my opinion, and that's why that's the basis of the teaching that I'm giving you here. He says, in other words, Nichiren defines the one chapter and two halves as beginning with Bodhisattva Maitreya's second question. All right? This difference in the interpretation of Tentai and Nichiren relates to the distinction Nichiren made between the Buddhism of the harvest and the Buddhism of the sowing. He made a distinction between the two. Okay? Shakyamuni's reference to the remote past in this chapter is intended to resolve the doubts of the assembly, those who he had already taught in previous existences as the 16th son of... You understand what I'm saying? All right, so he's saying that is the teaching directed towards Shakyamuni's contemporary disciples and thereby falls into the category of the Buddhism of the harvest. The teachings meant to enable Shakyamuni's contemporaries to harvest the seeds of Buddhahood planted in their previous lives. In contrast, Bodhisattva Maitreya's second question is asked on behalf of those who will appear after Shakyamuni's death, us. In reply, Shakyamuni reveals his enlightenment in the remote past in the next chapter lifespan. According to Nichiren's interpretation, this revelation implies the seed of Buddhahood, or the cause that enabled Shakyamuni to attain enlightenment. That is, the ultimate truth or law of life and the universe, which is not revealed on the surface of the Lotus Sutra or in any of the Buddhism of the harvest. Okay? Nichiren identified the law as Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. That's why we call him the Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, thus come one. You will never find in the Lotus Sutra any story about a Buddha in the history of Buddhism teaching somebody else's teaching. They always teach their teaching. Okay, so people that think that Nichiren made his advent in order to preach Shakyamuni's supreme teaching are kind of like in left field just from a logic standpoint, frankly speaking. They are people that want to close their minds to anything beyond a literal reading and interpretation of translation. Don't forget, all of these sutras have been handled. They've all been in, yes! None of these are digital recordings. Okay, we would even understand them if they were. They would be in an ancient language. Buddhism is a constantly changing, growing, ever-perfecting reality. It is the reality of life. Okay? So he says, which enables all people to, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, which enables all people to attain Buddhahood. Nichiren's one chapter in two halves refers to the essence of the lifespan chapter, or Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, the Buddhism of the sowing meant for people in the latter day of the law. In the object of devotion for observing the mind, Nichiren writes, the essential teaching of Shakyamuni's lifetime and that revealed at the beginning of the latter day are both pure and perfect, and they both lead directly to Buddhahood. Shakyamuni's, however, is the Buddhism of the harvest, and this is the Buddhism of the sowing. The core of his teaching is the one chapter in the two halves, and the core of mine is the 5 characters of the Daimoku alone. No PS, nothing added, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, the original state. Okay? So, that then gets me to the next thing that I wanted to go to. Did I lost something here. One chapter, I already read you Essential Teachings. Okay, pardon me. So then, now I want to go to the three great secret laws again, because this is another key issue that pertains to the Buddhism of Nichiren Daishonin, and other sects aren't completely aware of this, even though Nichiren qualifies it. The fact that they don't perceive Nichiren as the original teacher qualifies that they don't understand his teaching. They're reading him literally at a time when he has to speak literally in order to not get everyone that he's teaching in trouble. So the three great secret laws. What are the three great secret laws? They're not mentioned enough. Whenever you talk about the Gohonzon, you should really always say the Gohonzon of the three great secret laws, because that's what it is. What are the three great secret laws? Daimoku is one.
Yeah. And the
Object of devotion.
Object devotion is the second one, and what's the third one?
The place we chose.
Exactly. That's representing precepts. So, reading the definition from page 707 on the three great secret laws. Okay? The core principles, plural, of Nichiren's teachings. They are the object of devotion of the essential teaching. But the essential teaching? Is it the object of devotion of the essential teaching of the Buddha of the Harvest? No. Is it Lotus Sutra 16? No. The essential teaching of the law. Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. So he's saying, the core principle of Nichiren's, they are the object of devotion of the essential teaching, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, the daimoku of the essential teaching of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, and the sanctuary of the essential teaching where we put the object of devotion, the Gohonzon. Here, essential teaching refers to the teaching of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo and not to the essential teaching or the latter 14 chapters of the Lotus Sutra. Nichiren established these three essential principles to enable people in the latter day of the law to attain Buddhahood. They are called secret because they are implicit in the text of the lifespan chapter of the Lotus Sutra and remained hidden or unknown until Nichiren revealed them. So did Tentai know about the three great secret laws? Does Dingyo know about the three great secret laws? Nobody. Okay? So he says they are called secret because they are implicit in the text of the lifespan chapter of the Lotus Sutra and remained hidden or unknown until Nichiren revealed them. So Nichiren regarded them as the vital teaching that Shakyamuni Buddha transferred to Bodhisattva superior practices in the supernatural 21st chapter of the Sutra. He regarded his mission as one with that of Bodhisattva superior practices. The three great secret laws represent Nichiren's embodiment of the mystic law of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, all right, to which he was enlightened in a form that all people can practice and thereby gain access to that law within their own lives. He associated the three great secret laws with the three types of learning set forth in Buddhism. And this is, again, I've said this is so important. The fact that the three great secret laws, the Gohonzon of the three great secret laws, is why you can attain Buddhahood in your present form. Because the three types of learning that are necessary to attain Buddhahood are all contained within those three great secret laws without doing anything other than embracing those three great secret laws. So he says, the three great secret laws represent Nichiren's embodiment of the mystic law to which he was enlightened in a form that all people can practice and thereby gain access to that law within their own lives. He associated the three great secret laws with the three types of learning set forth in Buddhism: precepts, meditation, and wisdom. Specifically, the object of devotion corresponds to meditation, the sanctuary to precepts, and the daimoku to wisdom. Concerning the three types of learning based on the Lotus Sutra, Dingyo states, the space-like immovable precept, the space-like immovable meditation, and the space-like immovable wisdom. All these three altogether are transmitted under the name Wonderful Law. The three types of learning based on the Lotus Sutra are called space-like and immovable because, like space, which represents the ultimate truth, they are immovable or imperturbable. Nikko, in Ikekeo, Nichiren's successor, stated that in Nichiren's teachings, The object of devotion corresponds to the space-like immovable meditation, the sanctuary to the space-like immovable precepts, and the daimoku to the space-like immovable wisdom. Okay? So, again, Nico qualified the three great secret laws in his interpretation of Nichiren's teachings. You got it? Nichiren mentions the three great secret laws in several of his writings, all dated after his near execution at Tatsunakushi and subsequent exile on Sado Island in 1271. And in a work known as On the Three Great Secret Laws, he offers a detailed definition. At the core of the three great secret laws is the one great secret law. Do you understand? So, what's the three great secret laws? Let me read. This is the object of devotion of the essential teaching or Nichiren's embodiment in the form of a mandala of the eternal law of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, which he fully realized and manifested in his life. That's the one great secret law. He writes in The Person and the Law, deep in this mortal flesh I have preserved the ultimate secret inherited from Shakyamuni Buddha, the Lord of Teachings at Eagle Peak. Because embracing this object of devotion called the Gohonzan is the only precept in Nichiren's teaching, the place where it is enshrined corresponds to the place where one vows to observe the Buddhist precepts, the ordination platform or sanctuary of the essential teaching. So we don't have to go to Mount Hei anymore, right? Okay? The term precept in Buddhism implies preventing error and putting an end to evil. The daimoku of the essential teaching indicates the invocation or chanting of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo with faith in the object of devotion. It includes chanting the daimoku for oneself and teaching it to others. Thus, both the sanctuary and the daimoku derive from the object of devotion. Okay, so what's this level of clarity existed initially? What's it based on? It's actually based on Nico interpreting Nichiren's teachings and then qualifying these precepts under Dengyo's interpretation of space-like immovable precept and space-like immovable meditation and space-like immovable wisdom. Do you understand? All right, so what Nichiren did, though, was clarify it from the perception. What is Dengyo clarifying it from? Dengyo's clarifying it from the perception of Tentai and the Lotus School. Okay? Nichiren's going to reinterpret it now from the perception of Nichiren's teaching, the Buddhism of the sowing specifically. Do you understand? And it's a different time now. 300 years have gone by since Nichiren died. Nico's been gone a long time. The Fuji school has gone through changes and there's been hubris added and a lot of dogma, and Nichiren comes along and says a lot of this is wrong. Okay? So as a scholar, he creates the re-clarification. It's no different, again, than what we're doing right now. I'm speaking to you in a vernacular of everyday 21st century life. Okay? I'm not talking to you like a 1950s conservative Japanese layperson or anything else. I'm teaching you from me. Period. Okay? From my teachers. So, he's saying, later Nichiren, the 26th chief priest of Daisaku Temple, classified the three great secret laws into the six great secret laws. And this is all still part of the lineage of our understanding as Soka philosophy practitioners. First, the object of devotion is viewed in terms of both the person and the law. Because don't forget, Nichiren is the one that qualified the oneness of the person and the law. Ninpo Ikka didn't exist as a concrete concept until Nichiren qualified it as such. Do you understand? Which is the essence of everything. The oneness of the person and law is what makes the object of devotion a living thing rather than a piece of paper. It's what you can convey Buddhahood through. Do you understand? Because of what it actually is versus what it appears to be to a deluded person. All right, so classified the three great secret laws into the six great secret laws. First, the object of devotion is viewed in terms of both person and law. The person indicates Nichiren himself, according to Nichiren, not Shakyamuni, who achieved the enlightenment and virtues of the eternal Buddha because he revealed the eternal law of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, and who established the Buddhism of the sowing for all people of the latter day of the law. This is Nichiren qualifying this, not Nico. The object of devotion in terms of the law is the Gohonzon, which embodies Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Second, the sanctuary also has two aspects, the specified sanctuary and the general sanctuary. The former is the sanctuary to be built at the time of Kosen Rufu, which is what Shohondo was intended to be, or widespread propagation in accordance with Nichiren's instructions. This is the place where the object of devotion, Nichiren inscribed for all humanity, commonly known as the Daigo Honzen, is to be enshrined when his teaching has been widely spread and established. The general sanctuary is any place where one enshrines the object of devotion and engages in practice, like all of us in our own homes. Third, the Daimoku of the essential teaching also has two aspects, the Daimoku of faith and the Daimoku of practice. The former means to believe in the Gohonzon, Mugiwashin, and the latter means to chant the Daimoku and to spread it, to teach others, to practice for oneself and for others. According to Nichiren's interpretation, the text based on its essential meaning, the 6 great secret laws are considered a crystallization of the Buddha's 84,000 teachings. So the general and the specific are contained within the 6 great secret laws. Okay? Okay? The 3 great secret laws are a crystallization of the 6 great secret laws, and the 1 great secret law of Nam-myoho Renge-kyo is a crystallization of the 3 great secret laws. Does everybody understand that? Okay, and now to get into the last thing I wanted to teach you, or to go over with you before we start reading the Gosho's, the lecture, is the threefold secret teaching. And the reason I did this way is because I want you to perceive the reality of Nichiren. Because you must understand that what I'm talking about and everything that I've done that works for me and that I've encouraged you to do that's working for you, hopefully, is an extension of the teaching of Nichiren's interpretation. President Ikeda's Soka philosophy is also an extension of this interpretation. Okay? So, threefold secret teaching. A doctrine Nichiren, the 26th chief priest of Daisaku Temple, established, in other words, created, based on the passage in Nichiren's treatise of the opening of the eyes that reads, the doctrine of 3,000 realms in a single moment of life, is found only in one place, hidden in the depths of the lifespan chapter of the essential teaching of the Lotus Sutra. Nagarjuna and Vasubandhu were aware of it, but did not bring it forth into light. Tentai Chi alone embraced it and kept it ever in mind. Nichiren interpreted this sentence to mean that the doctrine of 3,000 realms in a single moment of life is found only in the Lotus Sutra, not in any other sutra, only in the lifespan 16th chapter of the essential teaching latter half, not in the theoretical teaching first half of the Lotus Sutra, and only in the depths, not on the surface of the lifespan chapter. The first point corresponds to the comparison of the true teaching, the Lotus Sutra, and the provisional teachings, all the other sutras. The second point corresponds to the comparison of the essential teaching and the theoretical teaching of the Lotus Sutra. The third point corresponds to the comparison of the depths and the surface of the lifespan chapter of the sutra, the former indicating the Buddhism of the sowing, and the latter the Buddhism of the harvest. The 3 levels of comparison reveal the ultimate teaching of Nichiren. And this was only established as a doctrine by Nichiren, the 26th high priest of Nichiren Shoshu. Understand that. These 3 levels of comparison reveal the ultimate teaching of Nichiren, or the Buddhism of sowing, as being Nam-myoho Renge-kyo of the 3 great secret laws. Nichiren used the term threefold secret teaching because the Buddhism of sowing, hidden threefold in the depths of the lifespan chapter, was unknown to other Nichiren schools. So anybody that's been a part of a different Nichiren school than Nichiren Shoshu, and I've already told you out of the 44, 45 schools, there's only 4 that actually have their roots and origin in the Lotus school, or the Fuji school of Nichiren Shoshu. So do understand that. If you're Kimpan Hokeshu, you don't know the Buddhism of the sowing. And so everything I'm saying you may consider a slander because you don't perceive the teaching that I perceive. That's the difference in our karma. That doesn't change what I understand to be the correct teaching and what I'm obligated to try and convey as a result. Do you all understand? Mm-hmm. Okay, so with all of that as a preamble to what we're going to now discuss about good teachers, bad teachers, correct teachers, and incorrect teachers, let me go. Here we start on page 42. When I look at the situation in Japan, I find that the devil king of the sixth heaven has entered into the bodies of wise persons. In other words, people that were capable, still had the ability to have fundamental darkness enter and affect them in a negative way. Transforming correct teachers into erroneous teachers and good teachers into bad teachers. This is what is meant when what the sutra means when it says evil demons will take possession of others. Although I, Nichiren, am not a man of wisdom, the devil king of the sixth heaven has attempted to take possession of my body, but I have for some time been taking such great care that he now no longer comes near me. Therefore, because the power of the heavenly devil is ineffectual against me, he instead possesses the ruler and his high officials, or foolish priests such as Ryokan, and causes them to hate me. Be that as it may, one should understand that at present, when it comes to teachers, there is a difference between correct teachers and erroneous teachers, between good teachers and bad teachers. One should shun those who are erroneous or evil, and erroneous and evil are the same thing, and associate with those that are good, are correct and good. Even if their virtue is known throughout the country and their wisdom is as bright as the sun and the moon, one should recognize that teachers who slander the Lotus Sutra are evil teachers and erroneous teachers, and refrain from approaching them. All right? He's talking to Sairen-bo there. But if you carry that forward with the same perception and understanding of what he's teaching, is as the Buddhism of the Sewing becomes completely known, he can make the same qualification for those teachers that teach the Buddhism of Sewing and those teachers that just teach Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Do you understand? Because what he's already qualified is the essential teaching is the Nam-myoho Renge-kyo that leads to actual Ichinen Sanzen. All right? There's a theoretical Nam-myoho Renge-kyo too. Okay? So, on to President Ikeda's lecture. True good teachers are those who have vanquished the devil of the sixth heaven. So what does he say there? What's that title say? True good teachers are those who have vanquished the devil of the sixth heaven. What does that mean? True good teachers are those who have attained actual Ichinen Sanzen. Okay? Because when you vanquish the devil of the sixth heaven, what have you done? Attained Buddhahood. Okay? If you've attained Buddhahood, what have you done? Exactly. All right? So, he says, there is, again, you have to have attained actual Ichinen Sanzen. Buddhahood is actual Ichinen Sanzen. Actual Ichinen Sanzen is Buddhahood. All right? Buddhahood, under any other description other than actual Ichinen Sanzen, is a theoretical construct of Buddhahood. So he's saying good teachers are those who have attained enlightenment in their present form, that are aware of the true teaching to the point that the devil of the sixth heaven can no longer make them doubt their own Buddhahood. That's what actual Ichinen Sanzen is. Coming to the conclusion that you are already the Buddha exactly as you are. Right? That's what Nichiren teaches over and over and over and over and over again. You can understand it theoretically, but once it kicks in as being the actualized reality that you experience and live every day, that's what he's talking about. So he says there is no... And then you asked me a question many years ago, and I'm freaking out when I'm reading this. Do you remember the question you asked me? You said, what's the worst karma there is? Yeah. Do you remember that question? Yes. What did I answer?
Not to believe yourself is a Buddha.
I actually said not to have a correct teacher. Because to understand that part, you have to have a correct teacher. Sure. Okay, that's a first step to that second part. Okay, so he's saying, there is no greater misfortune than that of supporting or following erroneous or misguided leaders. Because you don't know that they are. You're supporting them thinking that they are correct. You think that all those people supported Ryokan because they thought he was full of shit? No, he had convinced them precepts, I'm better than all of you, you should follow me. All right? So he says there's no greater misfortune than that of supporting and following erroneous or misguided leaders. Why? Also, why? They can't teach you how to attain actual Ichinen Sanzen. You can never be the living example, and you can never teach others how to attain actual Ichinen Sanzen in the absence of that teaching not being conveyed to you. It will always be a theoretical construct, which means it will always be gobbledygook bullshit. What's the difference between that and the Buddha of the harvest? Seriously, if you can't be the Buddha right now, this is all what good is it? Frankly. He says, Nichiren Daishonin tells us that when it comes to teachers, there are correct teachers and erroneous teachers, good teachers and bad teachers. And he says that we need the ability to distinguish among them. Do you understand that? He puts that responsibility directly on you, because your life is the only one that you have any functional control or relationship to that will be affected by that decision. All right? So he says, what he is emphasizing here is the frightening aspect of negative influences and evil friends. Mark. All the confusion that Mark can create to those that don't know enough to be able to go, oh, dude, you're full of shit, and blow him off. All right? When our inner darkness or negativity, our fundamental delusion is activated through evil influences, our tendencies of greed, anger, and foolish intensify. Our judgment becomes clouded, and our lives begin a downward spiral into confusion, wrongdoing, and misery. And that can happen after 20 years of chanting. Absolutely. There's no protection based on length of time you've been practicing. In this writing, Nichiren admonishes that if we associate with evil persons, then we will naturally come to follow their teaching in perhaps 2 or 3 out of 10 instances, which is why I said deleted. This is it. We don't associate with evil or erroneous teachers willingly. We don't try to save those people, because if we associate with them, they have the capacity to influence us and draw us into those evil paths. He says, in this writing, Nichiren admonishes, if we associate with evil persons on purpose, knowingly, then we will naturally come to follow their teaching in perhaps 2 or 3 out of 10 instances. So out of correct understanding now, they infect poison into questions. We begin to modify teachings that we already know to be correct and qualify them in an incorrect way. Do you understand? And will in the end become evil people ourselves. That is how insidious and frightening erroneous teachers and evil teachers can be. That's why Daisaku Ikeda speaks out so vociferously and directly about this issue. That's why I do. I'm not afraid if people hate me for saying this. This is the truth. This is what Nichiren Daishonin taught. For precisely this reason, making resolute efforts to battle evil together with correct teachers and good teachers is crucial in revealing our inherent Buddhahood. Erroneous and evil teachers are the ultimate negative influences or evil friends. Such individuals are the embodiment of what the sutras call worms within the lion's body. Influences that destroy Buddhism from within and bring misery to others. What does Nichiren say? Buddhism cannot be destroyed by anything other than its own practitioners.
Yes.
Okay? It can only be destroyed by the worms within the lion. The lion itself can never be defeated. Okay? But the worms, the incorrect teachers, the incorrect teaching that can infect, okay? And bring, worms within the lion's body, influences that destroy Buddhism from within and bring misery to others. Nichiren further explains that erroneous and evil teachers arise because they are possessed by evil demons. In other words, the devil king of the sixth heaven, the heavenly devil, enters their bodies, causing them to become deranged. References to the devil king of the sixth heaven entering a person's body simply mean that their own fundamental darkness, not some weird spirit from some devil, their own fundamental darkness, their own karmic inability to perceive their actual existing Buddha nature exactly as they are, has become activated. That's what that means. Fundamental darkness refers to fundamental ignorance of the law, that you are the Buddha exactly as you are, which manifests as us not believing in, doubting, and respecting the law that says you are the Buddha exactly as you are. This darkness or negativity is activated in our lives when our faith becomes clouded, because we become confused, because people we think that know what they're saying don't know what they're saying, and we listen to them. Our practice weakens, okay, because we become a little bit disillusioned. And we begin to doubt, and we cease to feel the power of the Buddha and the power of the law, because we no longer have mugi washing. Do you understand? On account of such things as, for example, becoming attached to erroneous teachings or obsessed with a selfish desire for fame and fortune. Everybody with me? This is all making sense, right?
Right.
In this writing, based on the principle of evil demons possessing one's body, Nichiren teaches that the devil king of the sixth heaven may possess the bodies of even people of wisdom, even people up to the 51st stage of almost perfect enlightenment, right? Near perfect enlightenment. They're all, again, Anattara Samyak Sambodhai is when you have overcome the ability of the devil of the sixth heaven to affect your perception of your Buddhahood. That is the 52nd stage of perfect enlightenment. He also states that the devil king has tried to take possession of his own body, Nichiren's. We can read this as a warning that we mustn't underestimate the devilish functions that pervade the universe. But he indicates that he is now impervious to the devil king, saying, I have for some time been taking such great care that the devil king of the sixth heaven now no longer comes near me. Consequently, the power of the heavenly devil is ineffectual against me. His assertion, I have for some time been taking such great care, means that he has been prepared for an onslaught of obstacles and devils, and that he has made and upheld a vow to triumph over them without fail. In this way, Nichiren teaches us that we can definitely beat devilish functions if we are firmly resolved to do so. Now, what does that mean then? What does our firm resolve have to be consisting of? To become the president of our own company? To get the right plastic surgery to become beautiful? To inherit our uncle's millions? No. We can definitely beat devilish functions if we firmly resolve to do so. So how can we defeat, what are we firmly resolving to do? To attain Buddhahood! That's it! All right? He says, in this way, Nichiren teaches us that we can definitely beat our own inner darkness if we firmly resolve to attain Buddhahood in our present form. If we resolve to attain actual Ichinen Sanzen. Do you understand? The essential qualities of good and correct teachers. Who then are correct and good teachers? What are their essential qualities? Nichiren Daishonin's criteria are perfectly clear. They are teachers who battle the three powerful enemies. In other words, they are attacked, they are slandered, okay, and who chant and propagate the mystic law without begrudging their lives. No matter how they feel, whatever they have to do, they're constantly trying to make themselves available to teach others the correct teaching. Correct teachers are those who will stand up to evil and injustice and to protect the people. In other words, get in the face of those people that they see trying to take advantage. In reply to Sairen-bo, Nichiren clarifies that the decisive criterion distinguishing good teachers from bad is ultimately their ability to defeat the devil king of the sixth heaven. So that means anybody that can't actually consider themselves a Buddha, then they must not really and truly believe the teaching that they already are the Buddha, because that's what the teaching is. Do you understand? So how can they teach you if they don't already really actually believe the teaching? Do you understand what he's saying here? President Ikeda is not trying to give people shit. He's calling it out for what it is. He's saying, Nichiren clarifies that the decisive criterion distinguishing good teachers from bad teachers is ultimately their ability to defeat the devil king of the sixth heaven, to attain actual Ichinen Sanzen. True Buddhist teachers set an example of personally battling and triumphing over devilish functions. Those who not only overcome devilish functions in their own lives, but also strive to teach and show all people how they can surmount such obstacles, are true teachers in Buddhism. So not people just practicing for their own benefits. Practicing as teachers of the law. Practicing as bodhisattvas of the earth. By contrast, individuals who easily give in to devilish functions, no matter how wise or virtuous they might appear, will end up slandering the law, showing hostility toward the practitioners of the Lotus Sutra, and destroying Buddhism. My friend Mark. Nichiren unequivocally declares that teachers who try to pass themselves off as having a profound understanding of Buddhism, while never having battled hardships and obstacles themselves, are all erroneous teachers. Whereas he himself having encountered repeated attacks and repression, is a genuine teacher of the law. And you got a point 14 there that I circled, so I'm going to read it to you. Also in reply to Sairen-bo, Nichiren writes, this is on page 53, each of the proponents of the various schools I have mentioned above declares that he beyond all others has grasped the meaning of and is practicing the Lotus Sutra. But none of them have been exiled to the province of Izu as I was, or exiled to the island of Sado as I was, or been to the place of decapitation at Tatsunakuchi, or faced the countless other difficulties that I have. If the sutra passages that predict such difficulties are true, then you should realize that I am the correct teacher, the good teacher, and that the scholars of the other schools are all erroneous teachers and evil teachers. So when we get to this, where was I? Where I just had that circled. Here. Page
46, and the last second paragraph.
So, okay, 14.
Yeah.
So he's saying, while never having battled hardships or obstacles themselves, were all erroneous teachers, whereas he himself, having encountered repeated attacks and repression, is a genuine teacher of the law, because he's actually undergoing the obstacles that are predicted for those that follow this path of correct teacher. Conquering obstacles and devils and embodying the law are key qualifications for good and correct teachers who can connect people directly to the law through the example of their own behavior. Not theoretical teachings out of a book, but their own daily life. Such teachers may be described as correct in terms of the truth of the law they uphold, and good in terms of their compassion to transmit the law to others and to impart benefit in the form of removing suffering and bringing joy. Here, is everybody with me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Here, let's confirm the three main qualities of a good and correct and good teacher as found in this writing. Such a teacher must be, 1, a person of wisdom, who sees through the devilish nature that is the fundamental evil inherent in human life, and who reveals the mystic law that is the fundamental good. That's actual Ichinen Sanzen. A person of courage, whose faith is dedicated to the correct teaching of Buddhism, and who continues fighting against evil without being led astray by the devilish nature. That is actual Ichinen Sanzen. And 3, a person of compassion, who is always concerned with relieving people's suffering and imparting joy, and actively works to realize happiness for oneself and for others. That's a Buddha. That is also actual Ichinen Sanzen. Once people have found or encountered such a correct and good teacher, all that remains is for them to do as the disciple, all that remains for them to do as disciples is to rise up together with their teacher and earnestly contribute to Kosen Rufu, as well as to battle resolutely against any negative forces that seek to obstruct that great objective. Right? You just have to practice this Buddhism in the last moment of your life. To be the Buddha. That's all you're going to do. Once people have found or encountered such a good and correct teacher, because a good or correct teacher would have to be considered a good friend, right? Mm-hmm. And so what does Shakyamuni say about good friends? It's either Maitreya or Manjushri. I always get them confused. I don't know which one said it, but it says, what seems to me that finding a good friend is like halfway to the attainment of Buddhahood, to the Buddha way. And Shakyamuni says, no, you're wrong. It's not halfway. It's the whole way. It's all the way. So that's what Nichiren is saying as well. Once people have found or encountered such a good or correct teacher, a teacher that has attained actual Ichinen Sanzen, a teacher that's living their life as a bodhisattva of the earth, a teacher who's living as a Buddha, who perceives themselves as a Buddha, who can correctly perceive the teaching that all people already are actually Buddhas. All right? All that remains for those people that meet such a teacher is for them to do as disciples to rise up together with their teacher and earnestly contribute to Kosen Rufu, as well as to battle resolutely against any negative forces that seek to obstruct that great objective. That's what my teachers taught me to do, and that's all I've done. In reading the letters Nichiren addressed to Sairen-bo, we find many passages in which he calls on his disciples to join him in the struggle for Kosen Rufu. It is when the disciple stands up for Kosen Rufu in accord with the mentor's call and wins in life that mentor and disciple become truly united in one. The lives of mentor and disciple resonate in harmony with one another, and the power of the Buddha and the power of the law pulse in the life of the disciple. Do you understand what that means? Yeah, the conveyance, they've taken on the aspect of actual Ichiren Sanzen. They've become the Buddha in their present form. Right? They were taught by the Buddha, but they've also become the Buddha. Do you understand? Mm-hmm. All right, so he says, there is no path to attaining Buddhahood apart from the path of struggling for Kosen Rufu together with one's mentor. Because if you're not doing that, you're not doing the practice of the Bodhisattva of the earth. And without a mentor that's already attained Buddhahood, you can't be taught the correct teaching correctly. Do you understand? Mm-hmm. There is no path to attaining Buddhahood apart from. That means there's no other way to do it, according to Daisaku Ikeda, in his opinion and understanding of practicing since he was 19 years old. Okay? The last 60 years or whatever that is. Do you understand? Okay, so going back to the Gosho, and I'm going to go ahead and finish it, guys, because it's almost done. So day and night, on page 48, day and night I ponder the important doctrines, and hour by hour, moment by moment, I savor the principles that allows us to attain Buddhahood. And because I pass the time in this fashion, though months and years go by, it does not seem long at all, and the hours that have elapsed do not seem like many. It is similar to the case described in the sutra when the two Buddha Shakyamuni and Mini treasures, seated side by side in the treasure tower, nodded in approval over the wonderful principles of the Lotus Sutra. And although 50 small kalpas had elapsed, because of the supernatural powers of the Buddha, it seemed to the great crowd assembled like no more than half a day. Among all the persons since the beginning of our present kalpa who have incurred the wrath of their parents or their rulers who have been exiled to distant lands, there can be none who overflow with joy as we do. Therefore, wherever we dwell and practice a single vehicle, that place, which is the Lotus Sutra, which is Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, that place will be the capital of the eternally tranquil light, and without having to take a step, those who are our disciples and lay supporters can view Eagle Peak in India day and night, will go to and from the land of eternally tranquil light that has existed for all time. What a truly inexpressible joy it is. Top of page 49. The great joy of the shared commitment of mentor and disciple. Now, as a Bodhisattva of the earth, that's the original teacher and you. But all other teachers in between that reflect that same thing. Do understand that. There's no separation between any of those teachers. They're all the same teacher, even though they appear to be different teachers, plural. They are all the same teacher. They're all, in essence, the Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. Thus come one aspect of the common mortal life that we all experience in the 10 worlds. The great joy of the shared commitment of mentor and disciple. Nichiren Daishonin writes, hour by hour, moment by moment, I savor the principle that allows us to attain Buddhahood. When we follow correct and good teachers and practice as they instruct, our lives will come into sync with theirs. The great inner joy of teachers who are one with the law inspires and animates their disciples. For a disciple, there is no greater joy than following a correct and good teacher and engaging together in the struggle to propagate the mystic law. This is the joy of the world of Buddhahood that vanquishes even fundamental darkness. It is the greatest of all joys that can beat back any adversity. Therefore, Nichiren says, how reassuring, how reassuring. And if we continue to think in this way, then even though we may be exiles, we have cause to be joyful in both body and mind. He is expressing that even amid great persecution, it is possible to savor a state of life overflowing with the boundless joy of the law. The teaching of the mystic law is passed from mentor to disciple when the disciple summons up the courage to propagate that teaching with a lion's roar echoing the vow of the mentor. I'll read that again. The teaching of the mystic law, and when we're talking about this, we're talking about actual Ichiren Sensen. Okay? We're not just talking about Nam-myoho Renge-kyo. We're talking about the true being the Buddha in your present form. Actual Ichinen Sensen. The teaching of the mystic law is passed from mentor to disciple when the disciple summons up the courage to propagate that teaching, to propagate the teaching that the mentor has passed to them, with a lion's roar that echoes the vow of the mentor, just as the mentor has, to propagate the teaching just as the mentor has. Do you understand? So it's not a casual person. It's someone that actually is trying to function as a true disciple of the mentor. Do you understand? There's nothing wrong with being casual, other than it will not progress to actual Ichinen Sanzen until you're no longer casual, because he's already qualified with a lion's roar echoing. What is echo? The same as, right? It's a replication of. It's a continuum of the same voice in reality. What creates an echo? A single voice. It's not a new voice that made the echo. The echo is a repetition of the same voice. Right?
Yeah.
Echoing the vow of the mentor. What is the vow? Get lots of benefits? Lots of money? No. Kosen Rufu is the vow of the mentor.
Right.
So when the disciple becomes a bodhisattva of the earth, not theoretically, actually, they become a Buddha, actually. Do you understand? Okay. So that's what he's saying. The 20-line verse section of the Encouraging Devotion chapter of the Lotus Sutra, which describes the 3 powerful enemies of Buddhism, is a lion's roar of bodhisattvas vowing to propagate the Lotus Sutra, even at the risk of intense persecution. Nichiren says that with regard to this lion's roar, and this is a famous quote, the first shi of the word shishi, or lion, which means teacher, is the wonderful law that is passed on by the teacher. The second shi, which means child, is the wonderful law that is received by the disciples. The roar, ku, is the sound of the teacher and the disciples chanting in unison, because there is no separation between them. They're a mechanism for the continuing propagation of the truth. Right? Because we all die, right? So if there's no teacher to teach new people to become teachers, eventually the people that know will die off. Do you understand? Kosen Rufu can never happen without more and new mentors. That's why you must take the vow to become a mentor. That's what your mentor took the vow to become. That's the vow they're talking about. Propagation in the latter day for the sake of the law, for the sake of Kosen Rufu. The life state in which one savors the boundless joy of the law endures for eternity. What is that saying? And this eternity is condensed in the deep and powerful resolve of a disciple who, acting in unity with the mentor, overcomes hardships and conquers devilish functions. It is in this moment-to-moment state of life that we can savor the immense joy of attaining Buddhahood. He took the answer out of my mouth. What is this? The life state in which one savors the boundless joy of the law. What is the life state in which one savors the boundless joy of the law? Actual Ichinen Sanzen, Buddhahood, endures for all eternity, because you now have attained Buddhahood in your present form. You now enter transmigration in the realm of Buddhahood. Right? You don't go with differences and limitations or change in advance. You are now in birth and death in the realm of Buddhahood. Do you understand? That's why this will last eternity. You're with me, right? Okay. And this eternity is condensed. This eternity is condensed in the deep and powerful resolve of a disciple who, acting in unity with the mentor, overcomes hardships and conquers devilish functions. It's condensed in the function of Mugiwashin as a bodhisattva of the earth. It's condensed in the function of doubt-free faith as a bodhisattva of the earth. This deep and powerful resolve of a disciple who, acting in unity with the mentor, with the teacher, overcomes hardships and conquers devilish functions. That's the attainment of Buddhahood in your present form, right? It is in this moment-to-moment state of life that we can savor the immense joy of attaining Buddha. It's in this moment-to-moment function. We're not in the 10th world all day long, right? That's what he's talking about. It's when we're striving for Kosen Rufu that we've elevated to the 10th world. Okay, in our daily life. That's when we can feel and sense and perceive the truth of our Buddha nature. Do you understand? The fact that we can at any moment means that we already have. All right? The place where we dwell becomes the capital of eternally tranquil light. Page 50. Nichiren, Daishonin, and Sairen-bo had both come to Sato as exiles. That's why Nichiren expresses the joy he shares with his disciple as follows. Among all the persons since the beginning of our present kalpa who have incurred the wrath of their parents or their rulers and have been exiled to distant islands, there can be none who overflow with joy as we do. And even though he and Sairen-bo both found themselves in bitter exile on Sato Island, he declares, wherever we dwell and practice the single vehicle of the Lotus Sutra, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, that place will be the capital of eternally tranquil light. When we uphold the supreme teaching of the mystic law, our lives as well as the place where we dwell come to shine with immense brilliance. When we challenge ourselves to propagate the mystic law, firmly resolving that the place where we are now is the place of our Buddhist practice and the stage on which we carry out our human revolution, then that place will become the capital of eternally tranquil light, the place where the Buddha dwells. Because what did we just do? We just revealed our innate Buddha nature. He says, when we. Okay, so when we do these things, when we uphold the supreme teaching of the mystic law, when we challenge ourselves to propagate the mystic law. Okay? Where we are now, bottom line, you understand what I'm saying? The point is that the land of eternally tranquil light is a life condition. It's not a place. It's not a location. Okay? It's a state of joy that cannot be taken away because you understand the truth of your true identity, your existence, the nature of your life, and why you're experiencing everything you're experiencing, and there's no doubt in your mind of where you're headed or why you're doing what you're doing. Nichiren writes, day and night we will go from the land of eternally tranquil light that existed for all time. Our daily practice of chanting Nam-myoho Renge-kyo and reciting the sutra is a ceremony of inner rejuvenation in which we return instantly to our eternal abode, our home, within the eternal dimension of life, to recharge ourselves and get ready to set off spirited once more to grapple within our struggles in the real world. Going back to the Gosho on page 50. So delightful is the thought that I will now make a promise to you. If you should be released quickly from exile and return to the capital, although the Lord of Kamakura may continue to refuse to pardon Nichiren, I will call upon the heavenly deities, and when I have been returned to Kamakura, I will write to you in Kyoto. If I should be pardoned first and return to Kamakura, then I will call upon the heavenly gods to make certain that you are able to return home to the capital. The victory of mentor and disciple is the victory of Buddhism. At the very bottom of page 50, second column. Lastly, and then we're finally done here, guys. Lastly, Nichiren Daishonin encourages Sairen-bo by making a promise reflecting his confidence that they will both eventually return from exile. This is the mentor calling out to the disciple, let's win together. What a powerful source of encouragement and inspiration these words must have been to Sairen-bo. 2 years later, after this letter was written, Nichiren was pardoned and returned to Kamakura. It is recorded that Sairen-bo was also pardoned and returned to the capital Kyoto. The disciple cherishing a tireless seeking spirit toward the mentor, and the mentor continuing to believe in and to pray for the victory of the disciple. These deep and vibrant life-to-life bonds triumphed in the end. The closing section of this letter also resounds as a compassionate and inspiring call urging Sairen-bo to the effect, please go on to become a worthy or sage. Please follow in my footsteps. What's he actually saying there then? Please attain Buddhahood in your present form. Please achieve actual Ichinen Senzen. The mentor's aspiration for the disciple spurs the disciple's awareness and sense of responsibility. I got that from my mentors. That didn't come naturally. Okay, that came from them teaching me that spirit. The disciple's victory becomes the victory of the mentor and the victory of Buddhism because of that's part of We aren't the only aspect. There are many people all over the world doing the same thing I'm talking about right now. This isn't just for those people that might hear me speaking. All right? The mentor-disciple relationship is the very heart of Buddhism. The Lotus Sutra is the teaching of the way of mentor and disciple. Nichiren's conduct, too, is pervaded with the bonds of mentor and disciple. This isn't about kissing Daisaku Ikeda's ass. This is about understanding the truth. All right? And walking the great path of mentor and disciple is also the fundamental spirit of the Soka Gakkai, an organization dedicated to realizing the Buddha's decree. Mentor and disciple in the Soka Gakkai share the mission to transform the karma or destiny of mankind based on the principles and ideals of Nichiren Buddhism. As long as this fundamental spirit of mentor and disciple never changes, the Soka Gakkai will continue to develop without end. Now, what does that basically say? If the Soka Gakkai is going to continue without end, what's that basically saying then? Is Daisaku Ikeda the only mentor? No! There will always be mentors. That's the function of the mentor, to make sure there are more mentors. Every mentor's function is to guarantee that there are more mentors. To pass on what they know so that it can be passed on. Not so that they can be praised, not so they can be worshipped, not so they can have their asses kissed, so that the teaching continues to live. Okay? As long as this fundamental... Okay. Mr. Toda taught that everything depends on the disciples. Because that's what the predication of the continuum is. If it's based on one mentor, that mentor will die. Period. He stood up alone to carry on and make accessible to all people the great path of the correct teaching that his mentor, Mr. Makaguchi, had laid down his life to protect and pass on to future generations. I likewise dedicated myself to supporting and assisting my mentor, Mr. Toda. Working together with my fellow members and overcoming all manner of adversities, I have extended our great path of mentor and disciple to 192 countries and territories. I have actualized all of Mr. Toda's dreams and plans and have demonstrated his victory to the entire world. Because Mr. Toda won, Mr. Makaguchi was victorious. Similarly, I am confident that my victory is Mr. Toda's victory. I have established a successful formula for accomplishing Kosen Rufu based on upholding the Soka spirit of mentor and disciple. And I can now report triumphantly to Mr. Toda with all of you that we have completed the foundations of worldwide Kosen Rufu. Nothing could bring me greater joy. Okay? So does he qualify that he is the only mentor? No. Understand that. Anybody that interprets the Soka philosophy as being Ikedaism is full of shit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.